Hello everyone, welcome to this internally screening podcast, and it is a very special podcast. Today we are doing a roundtable discussion, retrospective / review of Daniel Craig's very existence within the James Bond franchise, and maybe just his existence in general. Have you guys ever seen Enduring Love, starring Daniel Craig?
I've not actually.
Yeah,
no.
I bet I'm the only one here who's seen that. But yeah, but we're going to be doing a rundown of what we thought of each of his films, our sort of general thoughts on him as Bond, and then we're going to be going real deep into No Time to Die, the most recent Bond film, probably still in the cinema, so you know, good shit. We are joined today by Jacob and Tommy. Jacob, how are you doing?
What up? Yeah, very good. Very excited to be talking about a British institution.
I was sort of noting that this isn't Saw, so like I was surprised you even had any opinion on this.
Turns out I had a second specialty, which is Daniel Craig era James Bond films.
And Tommy, what are your James Bond credentials?
I've seen lots of the films, and
Is that
like a lot.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry. Maybe I should show myself out. I'm clearly not ready to be at a table with the James Bond experts.
Does anybody have any hot takes on the Daniel? Just as a sort of general thing before we move straight into Casino Royale, does anybody have any like general hot takes on Daniel Craig as Bond?
Is this as a trigger warning to anyone listening? Like,
yeah,
just to warn anyone that there might be something they don't like to want to hear.
Yeah, like is it any spicy takes?
No, I think all my opinions on Daniel Craig's era are pretty down the line. You know, in line with the general public, but we'll get into that.
Well, what are they? Let's hear them. What's your sort of general sort of just your sense of the Daniel Craig era? Now we're at the end, you know, of Daniel Craig.
Yeah, well, no, okay, it's interesting, isn't it? This is the first kind of more serialized Bond saga where everything is sort of tied together as essentially one long storyline. I mean, some films feel more like sort of duos than others, like Casino Royale obviously goes straight into Quantum of Solace, and Specter seems to go very neatly into No Time to Die. But I don't know if I'm 100% on board with not necessarily the idea of having a James Bond arc go across 5 films, but whether they make it work with the stories they chose out for him. I think character-wise, he goes on a very interesting journey. It's just unfortunate that there's so many peaks and troughs, such an inconsistency in quality across all 5 films.
Yeah. I mean, I think the problem for me, overall, I think as Bond, he's very good, except for in Spectre, which we'll get to, but I think his like actual performances, I think his performances across, even in Quantum of Solace, which I think is probably the worst one, we'll get to that as well. I think his performances are actually really good, especially Casino Royale. I think his performance is like amazing as an actor and as a Bond. That's probably like the best Bond performance to me. But yeah, I agree that like they only really start serializing it with Spectre and like a bit with Skyfall, where they bring in all of the classic secondary characters, because obviously Quantum of Solace doesn't have Q and Moneypenny and all this like ensemble that you expect with Bond, and then they sort of try and start serializing it like halfway through, and then it kind of feels a bit half-baked after he keeps retiring and going rogue, because it's supposed to bring like a sense
that happens like 3 times.
He always retires to like
they're supposed to.
Yeah, he always just tries to like the same island as well. It looks like he gets this little hut.
It's like, but it's like they're supposed to bring like a sense of normalcy, or like he goes into the office, he chucks his hat like in the olden days or whatever. Obviously, he doesn't literally do that now, but it's supposed to bring like this familiarity because he has this like ensemble cast. But it's like they barely know each other. They've met like 10 times.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we go to Casino Royale?
Well, I guess you don't care about mine and Tommy's opinion on the Daniel Craig.
Well, fucking give it to us then, dickhead.
All I'm saying is,
all right, Jacob, give us your lowdown on your overall thoughts on the trajectory of Craig's era.
Well, I think Daniel Craig, to me, is easily the best Bond that there's been. I don't know if that's a hot take.
I don't know if
that's a fairly spicy take. I mean, there'll be a lot of There will be a lot of there will be a lot of conflicting, arguing opinions, because you have such a dedicated pool of fans for the original Connery era, weirdos like me that grew up in the 90s and still adore Pierce Brosnan.
That's not that uncommon for people our age, I don't think, to be fair.
No, quite.
Yeah.
I
love Pierce Brosnan
it's
too.
era based, right? It's whichever era you first fall in love with Bond is the era, and that's it. So Jacob, your opinion is that it could be a bit controversial, just the tiniest bit.
I mean, for me, I think there's far more nuance with what Daniel Craig brought to Bond than what he was before, which was essentially a suave-looking mannequin that was just put in various cool situations. Is how I view all the Bonds up until the Daniel Craig era, where they've tried, with varying degrees of success, and also changing from film to film, they've been trying to inject more grit into his character and variety than just, I'm cool, I like shagging. What more do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say, I think sometimes trying to give James Bond an emotional arc isn't really necessary, because I think he can work as a character as just like a force of nature who is like a one-trick pony, and like that's kind of the charm of a lot of the older Bond films. I do see why they did it, because like he needed to be, like, it feels like, to do something different with the Bond. I think, right, it's good to have the Daniel Craig version where it's not the same as every other Bond. He kind of brought his own thing to it. I could see. I don't know if Daniel. I don't know who my favourite Bond is. I'm gonna go maybe I'll say Timothy Dalton or something.
Oh,
like
I knew it. I knew he had.
But weirdly, I think Timothy Dalton and Daniel Craig's Bonds are probably closest to each other.
Very similar
in terms of their kind of brutality, their vengeance arcs, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, License to Kill is like one of my favourite Bond films, and like if you're going to go like James Bond performances by actors, if we're just looking at like. Because are we talking about like which set of films are your favourite, or which actor playing Bond is your favourite? Because like I could understand someone saying like Roger Moore is my favourite Bond, even if they don't love all of the films that he's been in, they just like Roger Moore, right?
Yeah.
So I guess you kind of got to distinguish that, because like Pierce Brosnan might be my favourite if you're just going off of like his style of Bond, because it's like very entertaining. But do I like even like many of those films? Not really.
Yeah, fair enough.
What about you,
Tommy? Tommy, give us your hot takes.
Yeah, no, I was a big fan of the Daniel Craig films. I thought Casino Royale was like a much needed breath of fresh air, and Daniel Craig's Bond was a much needed breath of fresh air, because the franchise was kind of a little bit broken by Die Another Day. Not that Die Another Day isn't iconic for so many reasons, but
please be careful with your words about Die Another Day around me, Tommy.
But yeah, I think Die Another Day kind of took Bond to like a really absurd place in a lot of ways, and obviously between that, the Bourne movies came out, which were kind of this new action spy franchise that kind of blew Bond out of the water. So when Casino Royale came out, and you had this new Bond who was kind of a lot more brutal, and yeah, kind of was a massive departure from what we'd seen with Pierce Brosnan. I thought that was really important, and I thought Daniel Craig was like the right actor to do it as well. He was great in Layer Cake, which I think was kind of the dry run for him getting the Bond role. And I think when he was given a chance by the writing to really shine, which for me was Casino Royale and possibly the film we just saw, No Time to Die, I think he really came into his own. And like you said, you got to hit all of the kind of more of the nuanced version of the character.
I mean, I agree with all of that. Should we jump into Casino Royale?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll kick it off. Casino Royale is, in my opinion, up and down the best Bond film, pretty much.
Yeah.
The comparison I like to make to it is it's the Last Jedi of the Bond franchise, but done right, done in the way. So basically, what it does is it kind of takes everything you know about Bond and like subverts your expectations. So like, he gets his fucking balls whipped. You don't hear the classic music till like the very last moment of the film. He falls in love and gets his heart broken. There's like this car chase, which is like a whole like fake out. It's like so much more brutal and like realistic than you would expect. It has this like weird cold open with, you know, him in this black and white, and then this like absolutely brutal fight scene sort of like cross-cutting between them. So it's kind of like this. Oh, and he sucks at poker as well, which is hilarious. So, which I know is part of the original story, but like it works with like the subversive way the film is made, while also giving you loads of like big crowd pleasing moments. And like I've watched it so many times, and I'm still not bored of it. I could sit down and watch it right now happily, because I just think it's fucking amazing.
And I think
like very little bad to say about it at all.
I think we can all agree the opening sequence after the original credits, where he's doing the free running through Madagascar?
Yeah.
Possibly one of the greatest Bond sequences of all time. It's so
100%.
so good. Yeah.
It's like amazing stunt work in that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I think the best part about that is that it really sells the nuance of Bond to me, in that he's not the cool, he doesn't come out looking like the cool character in that scene, really. In that, you know, the bomb maker who he's chasing in that scene is like putting off all the cool moves, and Bond's kind of stumbling from set piece to set piece.
Yeah.
It's the bit where he just runs through a wall, which I love.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
that's
so
like
good.
a great character moment where the guy does like a sick move. He like jumps up, and he like flings himself through like this small space, and then Bond just like he just like runs through a fucking drywall. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like about that, is it's like Bond still kind of looks cool, obviously, but like he's also flawed in that he's not the coolest out there.
Yeah. I think that's awesome.
He's a bit more of a brute this time round. I guess I think a key distinction this makes from the older films is the move away from this glamorized idea of like this suave agent overseas, where, you know, all of this murder is cool and he gets the woman every single time and all these things. Like in this, it's a much drier kind of, he is a cold, calculated murderer who has to do awful things in order to protect his country or indeed, you know, the world at large. And, you know, it's very I guess he's a very rough-edged character. So, you know, in that scene, he's not even clever. You know, an older iteration of Bond might do something like sneaky to trap his enemy. He just barrels through the wall.
Well, remember,
I think if there's any one example of him versus the older interpretation of the character, that might be it.
Well, remember, the way that scene concludes is he's stuck with loads of guns on him. He's got one guy hostage, and he doesn't know how to get out of the situation. So he pushes him, shoots him, and then shoots like an explosive thing and just like runs away. He actually fails to capture him the whole time.
Yeah.
Which
he
is
also
like great.
He also punches a diplomat in the head.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think we all have to see. I'd also say like one of the key parts of Bond, like pretty much every single Bond film, it has to have a romance, right? And I don't think I think the romance in Casino Royale is like just so much. It just is more convincing, and it has like an amazing arc to it where they kind of like don't like each other at first, and it has like this like tension to it, and then slowly as like they do the whole casino thing and they grow closer together, and then that like amazing last sequence in Venice where Vesper ends up, you know, dying, is actually like quite emotionally involving in a way that often, you know, the women in Bond films obviously feel like very disposable. She actually feels like quite a fleshed out character, even if she's obviously defined by the romance with Bond. It like feels genuinely investing. It's not just because it's in a Bond film. Like, I actually care when I watch it.
You really feel that betrayal, don't you, when you find out she's taking the money out of the bank, and you can feel it in him as well. It's amazing. I completely agree, and like one of the things that surprised me rewatching Casino Royale is how good the writing is. Like how funny it can be as well. Like Judi Dench's line about Christ, I miss the Cold War.
Yeah, I love that.
Good. But also, like you said, Rupert, the whole bit where Vesper and Bond are on the train, just kind of sizing each other up. The dialogue in that is actually amazing, and I think it really sets up the right. And I think it's quite telling that pretty much all of the films in the rest of Daniel Craig's run kind of like cling onto the coattails of that initial romance, even in No Time to Die, because it was so effective and the audience was so involved in it. And to the detriment, I think, of some films like Quantum of Solace almost, where I think they focused on it a bit too much and couldn't come up with new stuff. But I thought it was really, really good.
The best line of that train exchange, by the way, is where they throw shade at their old Rolex sponsor.
Do they? I can't remember.
Oh, you know, it's when it says when he goes,
is he wearing like an Omega
nice watch, Rolex, Omega, smart.
I love
Which is just an ultimate shit talk after Rolex. There were disputes with them doing the future Bond films.
Wait, when you watch Casino Royale, do you ever get the urge to buy a Sony Ericsson? Because I personally, like, I'm just watching, I'm like, God, I want a Sony Vaio laptop and I want a Sony Ericsson. That is
but when I watch Quantum of Solace, I do get the urge to buy a Ford Mondeo. So, you know.
I will say that I'm personally not a huge fan of that final set piece in Venice. I feel just because there's such a big downtime after the Le Chiffre kind of plot ends, and then he's in rehab, that lovely rehab place, and it's so quiet, and he's just having fun with Vesper for such amount of time. I'm almost like my body's kind of stopped being ready for more action.
It is definitely like structurally it's an epilogue, but that doesn't really bother me personally.
But that's just
Let
me.
us not go on too much longer before giving shine to one of the greatest baddies in all of James Bond history with Mads Mikkelsen's Le Chiffre.
See, now if I did have a complaint, I would say it's that he gets a somewhat unsatisfying end. It kind of, it does work in the sense of like the subversive nature of the film, but like I do feel like there was you could have gotten more out of that character.
I mean, I just want to see Mads Mikkelsen on screen as much as possible.
Yeah.
So I mean,
he is
I will
awesome.
agree with you there.
I still can't believe that I was 11 years old in that cinema and I watched Mads Mikkelsen like smacking someone's balls with a piece of rope in like one of the most horrific torture scenes I've ever seen, and they let me into the cinema as an 11-year-old. Like, it's actually
that
mental.
is a ridiculous scene. I mean, also Daniel Craig kills it in that scene, and so does Mads Mikkelsen. That is like a great, like, you know, those classic like 2-actor one-on-one scenes, like I don't know, like in the end of like Apocalypse Now or something,
or Heat or something.
Like,
yeah.
Marlon Brando with what's his name, Martin Sheen. You got that great scene of them just kind of like bouncing off one another. That almost feels like that kind of. I feel like Casino Royale, given like time, is going to be seen as like an absolute classic.
Yeah, I would agree.
Do we think Mads Mikkelsen is the greatest villain in all of these films?
In all of the Craig films? Or
all the Craig films.
I would say that
yes,
Le Chiffre felt like one of the most complete characters. I didn't like Blofeld. I'll get onto this later. I thought Blofeld just never worked for me. At no point did Blofeld work for me in any of the films.
No, I completely agree. We'll get to that. I'm actually going to go Javier Bardem.
Really?
You prefer Javier Bardem?
I just think like
I say that outraged like he's bad. He's obviously fantastic.
I just think
Javier
like
Bardem
he brings
so good.
Like, don't get me wrong, I love Mads Mikkelsen in the film, and like Mads Mikkelsen is one of my favourite actors. But like when I think about what like a villain brings to a film, so much of the appeal of Skyfall falls on Javier Bardem's character. Every time he's like on screen, it like spices everything up. And if you took him away, the film like doesn't work at all. It's like you almost lose like 50% of the likability. Of the film.
I mean, we can only imagine what a film like Spectre might have been with a Javier Bardem style character in it instead of shoehorning Blofeld in for no particularly brilliant reason.
Should we go to Quantum?
Sorry, the last thing I'd say about Casino Royale was, like I mentioned, like I first saw this film when I was like 11, 12, and I think the fact that the film was about poker and stocks and that I still understood it is like really
very
so
clever filmmaking. Although apparently
it's like the opposite of Phantom Menace.
Apparently, if my god, where it's like taxation of trade routes. I'm just like, I remember as a kid, that's the bit where I like knock out. I'm like, well, I don't know this bit, and like, but apparently, if you play poker, Casino Royale becomes a bit worse because the hands they have are like absolutely ridiculous. But like, I mean, I don't give a shit.
I think that one more thing I would like to say about it is like it's a Bond film that really almost uniquely uses simplicity to its advantage to kind of get the most out of its characters and the world it's building. Like, you really get lots and lots of time to focus on people in this specific scenario, and like, because they're not like sort of constantly jetting around the world at any given moment, you're you know, just allowing them that breathing space, and you get so much good like sort of character tension. And I think the simplicity allows all those ideas to be communicated to the audience more effectively, because there's no confusing MacGuffins and bits of exposition and detail getting in the way and flooding their senses. It's just, you just got to win a fucking poker game, and a man bleeds from his eyeballs, and then there's cock and ball torture at the end, and that's kind of it.
When you put it like that, it's a different film, isn't it?
It sounds like my Saturday night.
And if we want to go from talking about a film that utilises beautiful simplicity to its advantage to a film that does the complete opposite, we will now talk about Quantum of Solace.
Gorgeous segue.
Yeah, because the beauty of Casino Royale, Martin Campbell, the way he directed it, is like ruthlessly economic, and like there's almost like no waste of time. Then you get to Quantum of Solace, and it like picks up. I remember like I saw Casino Royale as a kid, like everyone did, and I just assumed I was going to go into this film kind of just understand what was going on. And I watched them both pretty recently, and to this day, Quantum of Solace is like a fucking nightmare to keep up with. It literally starts at like top gear, and there's a really clever. Someone made this point in some like film video essay. The opening car chase. Not only is it terribly like, I guess you'd say like choreographed. The
choreographed.
Yeah, like the choreograph. It's not clear. And one of the big things is James Bond's car is silver, and all the cars chasing him are silver. So it's like, couldn't you just
I thought they were all black.
No, they're all silver. I think I watched it.
They aren't very distinctively, because they're all they're fancy like Italian Alfa Romeos anyway.
Right, that's it. Yeah.
But like a very easy way, like filmmaking wise, this is just, it feels like quite indicative of the rest of the film, to distinguish these things, which would be like, well, you just have the other cars be other colours, so then like the audience can just instantly clock like, oh well, the black car's chasing the silver car, those are the bad ones, right? And like it immediately is really confusing, and you know, it picks up so soon after the plot of Casino Royale, and it doesn't. I don't know, watching it recently, the film just never like settles into a groove. It just like, it's constantly moving. There's like almost nothing to grab onto, and I believe it was like a victim of the writers' strike, right?
Yeah,
of course.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you can really, really feel it, because like, my God, it just kind of bounces from one thing to another. And it's a kind of film where if you had a character like Javier Bardem or something to like latch onto, or like some really great fight scenes or something, you could sort of recover a bit of enjoyment from it, but it doesn't even have that.
What's the villain called again? Isn't it something like Dominic Green, or he has like a really?
He's actually a great actor.
He's great.
Marc or something, but really forgettable.
Very forgettable villain, I think. One thing I did, and we kind of didn't mention this for Casino Royale, is did you guys like the music for Quantum of Solace? Because Casino Royale had an amazing song.
Oh
obviously,
God, yeah, the Jack White song is awful.
I like Jack White, but this song just didn't really resonate with me at all. Not like the You Know My Name Chris Cornell did for the previous one. So when that kicked in...
That's also a great opening title sequence with just the theme of it. With like the animation of the cards and stuff.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Well, we all know the best song is the one from Specter, so...
No, we all know the best song is Die Another Day, but we can't talk about that today. So we'll have to
Adam, stop talking about fucking Pierce Brosnan.
This is my opportunity to derail this Craig conversation and go, the real truth is that Craig, whilst did a great job, never quite lived up to the absolute supremacy that is.
We'll do Brosnan another day, okay? Fuck it out.
So, for Quantum of Solace, compared to Casino Royale, one of the big things is in Casino Royale, Bond's relationship with MI5 is
MI6.
Whatever. It's far more something MI. Mission Impossible. Oh no.
He's got lost in franchises.
In Casino Royale, he does something. He fucks up in the first mission, and they're like, "We're mad at you. Go away for a bit." But he continues to kind of go behind their back and go lone wolf with it. And then when he's like, "I did find what was being planned with the big plane thing." We didn't talk about that sequence being amazing as well.
That is a great bit, yeah.
And then they're like, look, okay, you solved the problem you created, but like also you got this woman killed. You didn't do it very cleanly. You know, the relationship made sense. In Quantum of Solace, it's all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
Like he brings in Mr. White.
Mr. White, yeah.
Who then's got the secret bodyguard and just Em's like, I gave him a Christmas present or something.
We're everywhere,
like that.
aren't we?
Oh my God, yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, she's like, it was on my Christmas card list or something. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And then he goes to the opera and he hears them all talking, and then that guy gets thrown off a roof, and Dominic Green like shoots him or whatever, and then goes, haha, now they'll think Bond did it.
I was watching that. That was quite confusing because it would have been very easily solved if Bond just said something.
So, he was like, I didn't do that.
Yeah, because M's like, oh, well, you didn't have to execute him point blank or something, and then he just, like, says nothing. It's like,
yeah,
you were there. You like, dropped him off a building. You could have been like, I don't fucking shoot him. And that would have solved a lot of confusion, but he just doesn't say anything. In fact, Daniel Craig, I mean, I kind of get what they were going for with this, because Daniel Craig's performance and the way he's written, I remember as a kid distinctly thinking, like, wow, Daniel Craig doesn't actually say very much in the film. and he doesn't have that much dialogue in it. Watching it now. And I think I get what they were going for, because the film is supposed to be him like grieving for Vesper, right? And he's like taking out all this anger and frustration on everyone, and he's like quite destructive. But all it really but because the story doesn't support it, the story's like really convoluted, and you've got like this like warlord guy working with this environmentalist with CIA guys who are corrupt, and they're trying to like build a pipeline or something, and it's just like so convoluted. You get no sense of trajectory with him, and it just feels really messy.
Sorry, I had one last point. I'll then we'll shut up. I promise.
That's all right.
So when it comes to the Vesper and the mourning thing, I thought, and getting over not only her death but like the betrayal, I think was a really cool idea. But they totally undo it at the end of the film as well, when they talk about how the lover she was trying to protect is then like, oh, it turns out he was a double agent himself and had seduced her. And I'm like, well then, you've kind of undone everything.
I could see that working, because it's like, oh, well, you're judging her actions like very rashly, and you're assuming the worst, which would go with this character. I do agree with you.
It just adds another layer of complexity to that relationship when like. And it makes me go more confused about what she actually was then, and what her motives were.
Yeah, because that final scene where she's like trapped herself in the elevator and essentially commits suicide is like so brutal, and it kind of works better with the original version. I see what you're saying. I can also see, like, if someone argued for it, I could probably be swayed, but I do see what you're saying.
Not the last time that the franchise essentially retcons a character or events to the detriment of the overall franchise.
Indeed.
Oh, God.
Can we quickly talk about how silly the name of this film is as well?
Yes, that's a very good point.
A small amount of comfort would have probably been a better name.
Immeasurably small amount of comfort.
Is this all this is to you, James? Some kind of quantum of solace? I was waiting for that line to go out the whole.
Yeah. Someone says solace.
It would have almost made sense. It would have almost made it make sense, right, if you'd actually addressed what the fuck you meant by the film title. But just having it there is like, what? What are you referring to?
I remember as a kid being like, Mum, what does quantum of solace mean? Like,
what is a quantum of solace?
What is that? And I'm pretty sure I got no answer, because I don't think anybody can sit there and be like, what?
Yeah, what marketing exec came up with that one and was like, yep, that's going to work.
It sounds
all the
cool,
billboards, people are going to be like, yeah.
I also think just like one of the things that makes this so obviously a huge downgrade from Casino Royale is just how bad the action is. There is like one good action scene in this film, and it's a completely irrelevant, meaningless action scene where he goes to Cuba or something, some tropical place, and he goes up to his hotel room, and a guy attacks him in the hotel. And they have a fight, and it's a pretty good fight. It's like way more quick cut than a lot of the Quantum stuff. It's way more like Bourne, but like you can tell the actor's like really doing the stunts, and it has like a pretty brutal ending where he like bleeds him out, and then like everything else is like just a headache to watch.
What about the CG, the like plane sequence? That's fantastic.
God, that plane sequence is so bad.
It's so budget action film with a crazy sequence.
Yeah, and like ridiculous. For like doing the realistic version of Bond is kind of what it felt like. That bit with the parachute is just so unbelievably stupid. And then like the final sequence at like the big place in the desert, the big building.
It's a hotel. Yeah. For if you go on holiday to the desert.
Yeah, like it's got some like cool shots in there. There's like this really flashy, cool looking shot of the main villain running as like these explosions go off. And like all these like panels of glass are like exploding. It looks very cinematic, but there's like no geography to it. There's like no tension except for the fact that like the big bad general of some dictatorship is trying to like rape the Bond girl in another room. So like that's really all they add to it, but you never really get like a sense of where anything is, and it just is again just like the rest of the film. It's just like confusing, and you don't really get what's going on.
I agree with you, Jacob, in that I think it was a good idea looking at Bond and Mourning on this like quest for vengeance, and there are parts of the plot actually that almost seem like there would have been cool twists, like when you find out it's actually water, not oil, that they're after.
Yeah, I quite like that water element.
Yeah, exactly. If that had been like better executed, I think that could have been a really cool twist, and there are elements of a good story there. It just wasn't well executed, and I can't quite figure out why I haven't watched it in so long, just because it's not like terrible, it's just not fun to watch. It has no real value in a rewatch, I think.
Yeah.
If anything, it detracts. It almost makes Casino Royale feel a bit worse just because of like it feels like Casino Royale was building to Quantum of Solace, and then you're like, oh.
Game of Thrones season 8 style. Yeah.
You can skip completely from Casino Royale to Skyfall and have a far better time.
It actually feels more natural.
Yeah.
Also,
in my head, that's just the headcanon.
Also,
what about
unlike a lot of bad Bond films, because there are plenty of bad Bond films. There might be more bad Bond films than there are good Bond films. But
thanks to Roger Moore.
Yeah, but like the thing is, right? I wouldn't say this is a worse film than something like Octopussy or A View to a Kill, but it doesn't have the charm. Like
that's the crucial.
It doesn't
part.
have. Even if it's like maybe like a bit better, like overall, like doesn't have all these like terrible moments that some of those films had. It doesn't have that like charm to it. It is like it's just devoid of charm in like almost every way.
Like if you try and recall it years after you've watched it, like it took a rewatch to bring any of this sort of stuff back.
Mate, I watched it yesterday and I can't remember what happened.
Right. You know, it's impressive how much is happening and yet how little of it you retain because of the haphazard nature of the storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of like interesting visuals, things that really stay in my mind and have done since I first watched it were, you know, the girl covered in oil as an homage to Goldfinger, and then the whole thing of him at the end having to like being forced to drink the oil in the desert. And you know, those are the only kind of striking, like memorable moments that stay with you for any kind of length of time.
I would
this
say
film evaporates out of your brain.
There's one cool shot where he chases. It's right in the opening chase scene where he chases a guy up to a bell tower, and he's like looking for the guy in the bell tower.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the exact same
there's
bit.
There's one really cool shot where he like tackles him and they both fall through the glass, and the camera goes
amazing.
like
That is cool.
whoop, and it like swoops down.
Right.
Like when you get bits like that, it's like, oh wow, that kind of banged, and then like immediately you go back to the film, you're like,
who directed this film?
It was a guy who let me look it up, who is most often it's the guy who directed World War Z, so he's and he did The Kite Runner. So
is he a bit of a Hollywood yes man by any chance?
I don't really know, to be honest. Marc Forster is the name. He did Christopher Robin, Stranger Than Fiction, Leaving Neverland, and Stay, which is actually quite a good film. And Monsters Ball, which Halle Berry won an Oscar for. So he's more of like a sentimental director, so I could see why on paper it might work, but clearly like he doesn't have an eye for action. And you can see that in World War Z as well, because the action in that film is horribly quick cut as well. And it was probably just all shoved off onto second unit with not much choreography, and then on top of that the writer's strike. So I don't think he was the right director for the job, and then on top of it the writer's strike probably fucking like kneecapped the chances of this film being any good. But should we move on to Skyfall? This is like, I would say, is almost like the soft reboot after you kind of move into like
they were like, fuck, we need to do it again
within the reboot. And it's directed by Sam Mendes, who is like a much more auteurish American director. No, is he American? He might not be American.
He's English.
I think he might be English, you're right. No, he is English, because Cary Fukanaga is the first non-English director of a Bond film. When Quantum of Solace came out, it was kind of felt like most of the people I knew, it was kind of met with a sort of like resignation, like, because it didn't really excite anyone. But when Skyfall came out, people were fucking hyped on this film.
Well, this film, is this still the most successful Bond film of all time?
Yes, it was the first.
Because it broke $1 billion.
It was the second highest grossing film of that year, I believe.
What was it second to, do you know?
Oh, I can't remember. Probably a Marvel film at this point.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
But do you remember when this film came out? I don't know, maybe this is just me. I just remember people were talking about it. It was like a big deal, because that Adele song popped off.
It really did.
Time.
That song slapped, yeah. It was good.
2012, bloody hell.
2012, then.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm so old. The Adele song popped off, and I just remember people were so hyped on it. But yeah, what do you lads think of Skyfall?
I quite liked it, but I liked it more at a rewatch. When I first watched it, I think it had been overhyped for me. What I did quite like about it was that it kind of made Judi Dench the female lead almost, as opposed to one of Bond's usual kind of
ensemble.
One of his usual person that you never see for another film. They kind of made her in the final act kind of like the Bond girl almost, and I thought that worked really well. That being said, I think moment to moment the scenes are really, really impressive. I think the story felt a little bit janky to me. It didn't flow as smoothly as Casino Royale. I'm not sure why that is. There's things like you say, kind of Rupert, it was like a soft reboot, wasn't it? Because they have him being shot in the opening sequence and then him kind of being reborn and then he's kind of back in action. But for me, apart from the symbolism, it didn't really make sense to me why they did that. It didn't really flow with the rest of the story, or it didn't really seem to have a purpose that I could really sink my teeth into. But you guys might disagree.
I quite liked it because I particularly like the bit where Javier Bardem's character reveals to him that, because the film, like you said, it almost entirely revolves around M, and I really like how the film does revolve around her and makes her at the same time much more likable and sympathetic, but also shows how absolutely fucking ruthless she is. And the fact that bit happens at the beginning, I like the bit where Javier Bardem reveals that he failed all of the psychological and physical training tests, which obviously you just don't expect because it's James Bond. And he's like, she sent you in here like a lamb to the slaughter. So I think it works if just for that bit, because I think that bit's quite good. I don't know, you guys might not agree with me, but I think this is by far the most beautiful looking James Bond film. It's so well shot, particularly the bit in up on
Scotland.
the scraper, Scotland.
You're talking
where they have the jellyfish and shit.
Flashing lights.
Yes,
and
that is great.
That amazing
and
silhouette
through
fight scene.
Glass and stuff.
Cool.
That is banging. Yeah. So this, in sort of contrast to what we were saying about Casino Royale and its sort of complete dedication to simplicity, this is the first of the series that does the jet setting but does it right, and it takes you to all these glamorous locations, and every single location has something wonderful and unique to it. Like Macau, when he comes into that weird bar on the boat and he's going through all the Chinese lanterns and stuff, and there's a fucking Komodo dragon pit.
That's so Roger Moore.
Why not?
Really is.
I rate that so much, and the fact that they then get a Komodo dragon to eat a bloke. Why not?
You can't hate on that.
On that note, so I would actually disagree that this is the first time that Bond jet sets, because I believe Casino Royale, I think, also does that nicely in that
you get a good variety of locations in Casino Royale,
and him tracking from place to place makes logical sense. So,
but I guess what I mean is that they spend so much time in Casino Royale. Once you're sort of at the casino, you're there for the majority of the film. This film is a lot more about a continued journey. You're always going from place to place to place.
That's fair.
And that's a kind of continued trend with Spectre and indeed No Time to Die. This sense of never feeling settled, and in having Casino Royale, having that settled nature, I think gave it a stronger foundation, and I think few of the remaining films properly nail the balance between momentum but also characterization and effective storytelling, and that's what I'm praising Skyfall for, is it does achieve that balance where a quantum of solace, a quantum of the solace, I don't know what I was saying, quantum of solace, and
it makes about the same amount of sense, Adam, don't worry.
Quantum of the solace, but and Spectre, they aim for that but do not achieve that same level of efficiency.
Stupid question, why is this film called Skyfall?
It's the name of his house.
It's the name of the house in Scotland.
Of the house where he grew up.
I never
how did you guys... Actually, that's a fair... How did you guys feel about them delving into James Bond's kind of childhood origins a bit? Because sometimes I know it's kind of that Doctor Who thing where you don't want to know too much about their past because it kind of takes away from a bit of the character. But did you guys like it? Or adding midichlorians, yeah.
I actually really liked it because they didn't go really explaining into it. It's just basically the dynamic between him and that one bloke, and it's funny and it gives you a bit of information, but it's not and maybe the hammiest it gets is when his parents died he hid in the hole for 2 days, and that that might have been a bit too much. But it has some great stuff with the bit where they're practicing the shotgun and he's like, oh yeah, I think I know how to use it. He's like, alright, you jumped up little shit, and you get that sense of character dynamic, and then when he fucking blasts it, he's like, what'd you say you do for a living again? It's got that kind of it's got that humour to it, and I think for the most part it's fine, maybe apart from that one bit which is a bit hammy.
Well, I think yeah, they don't give away too much information about it. You know, they establish a kind of couple of key facts, but if there was this whole horrible exposition scene of like, you know, like flashbacks upon flashbacks,
yeah, with like a baby Daniel Craig,
little baby Craig going through, you know. One also, a complete aside, I would love to address this just quickly. Why do Americans pronounce it Craig?
I know,
in every interview I've been hearing recently, it's like, oh yeah, Daniel Craig was great as James Bond. You're like, shut the fuck up. It's got AI in it. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Well, just wait till you hear them pronounce rural.
I know, like I understand. It makes other things make sense. Just, I mean, that doesn't make sense. But I mean, lots of things do make sense, even if I find them irritating. But Craig to Craig. You fucking bonkers. Anyway, sorry.
What I like about this is that it took kind of the premise of grittier Bond from like Casino Royale, but also brought in back some of that kind of world-ending mass scale that some of the earlier Bond had, which I think you know some people were actually kind of pouring for in the earlier issues. They were like, it's cool, but having a banker for terrorists and then a man who might raise the price of water utilities in a small country, you know, don't really have that same scale. Whereas in this, you know, even though it's still quite a personal vendetta that the villain has, you know, you've got the tube being destroyed, you've got the whole people running around. There's a real sense of impending doom that comes with the villain, and that's what I really like that this film brought with the successfully married the old and new in a really cool way.
I was going to disagree with you because I do really like that compared to particularly No Time to Die, the stakes are so high and don't make sense, but we'll get to that. Whereas this, I agree with you, it's the sense of destruction and like, wow, this guy's a fucking problem because look at what he's doing. But I do like that it's like, this is just one guy. All he wants to do is kill M, and you completely get why. Like, he has that sympathetic angle, and I love the backstory with the cyanide pill where he does that little speech.
Oh, that bit where he takes the plate out is iconic.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and his opening monologue is fantastic about the rats in the barrel is great, and he does that great sort of walk up to Craig, and it's like that one shot, and then he does the mummy, it's been bad, and he's just like, he's got that kind of campy classic Bond villain. I just love Javier Bardem in this. I think he's like so great. They nailed the look of his character. The only thing, one big negative for me on this film is I hate the whole he gets captured on purpose plan, because I don't know, it just annoys me. And
like, it takes a lot of suspension of disbelief, doesn't it? This film, and I know
especially the bit with the train,
the underground,
So I agree, I have got that down, but I do quite like the 4D kind of chess element that's so far, I was so many moves ahead, I knew which tube line to blow.
Yeah, it's just ever since The Dark Knight, every Hollywood film has tried to fucking pull this thing where it's like, oh, he got captured on purpose, fuck, he fucking got them. So it is kind of, I don't know, especially, he like escapes through like a grate in like MI6. It's like, why is that there? Why have you put him in a room where there's a secret escape with a grate?
You need good sewage in any place, Rupert. There are building codes to maintain.
Like, if he's going to escape in that way, make it a bit more dramatic. Make like a bunch of the MI6 people turn on them with fucking AKs or something. You know, like.
That could have been cool.
I personally think, like, with his background of being a computer hacker and, you know, this purely logical mindset. For me, I found it very easy to suspend my disbelief that he can plan all of these, albeit ridiculous, as soon as you look at them for more than 5 seconds.
Jacob, how did he get the tube to go where Daniel Craig was standing?
If you've hacked the tube, you know where it would look.
How did he know
Think
Daniel
about
Craig
it.
was going to follow him?
Do you drive tubes? No.
He just
and he times the tube.
He just put bombs in every tube tunnel, Rupert, like 10 years ago, being like, yeah, one day this will come in handy. And then it did.
No, you know what? It's the greatest advert for TfL. It's like, look, our tubes run so efficiently. You can predict years in advance when they're going to blow up.
Yeah. I would also say, just like one final thing, I think the farewell to M is like great. And the final set piece, I love the final set piece in the big house in Scotland where it's like Home Alone meets James Bond. And I just said one moment in this film is just so wonderfully James Bond to me. It is the bit where the bad guy gets everyone to shoot the car, and James Bond goes like, He's like,
Yeah.
he's like enraged, and then he like blows everything up. He like gets it all set up. It's just that one bit is just like it's so like dumb and like crowd pleasing. Where he like looks at the car, he's like, I can't believe they've done that to my Aston Martin.
As dumb as the fact that that car that he won in a poker game 2 films earlier has been outfitted with guns behind the scenes for some reason.
Look, don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. Okay, yeah. So we all generally rate Skyfall. That's good.
Tommy, do you have any final words on Skyfall?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are right. If you suspend your disbelief, if you're willing to suspend your disbelief, I think it's a really, really good film. And I think sometimes that can be hard because it's quite a jarring change from Casino Royale and Skyfall. Like, I can't imagine something like the underground chase happening in Casino Royale. That would be so like fucking ludicrous.
No, quite.
Or like a hacker doing all that weird, yeah. But I think it is genuinely like quite a strong film. It's just a shame what follows it.
Yeah. So what follows it is Spectre, also directed by Sam Mendes. I was so fucking hyped for this film. The trailer looked great. They had Christoph Waltz as Blofeld. I was like, that is a great casting.
Hot off the back of Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained. Like,
I was like, bro, this is gonna slap. The cinematography is done by Emmanuel Lubezki, who is a great cinematographer, probably like the best in the world, if not, well, he's up there with like Roger Deakins. He's like one of the best cinematographers ever. He did the cinematography for like Children of Men and like loads of great films. Oh, he did Birdman as well, so you know he's fucking talented. That got me hyped. It looked like it had everything going for it. And in the first like 5-10 minutes of the film, you're almost tempted to think it's going to deliver with the Day of the Dead bit, and then you realise the Day of the Dead scene is like by far the best part of the film, and it's all downhill from there.
For me, it's pretty much the only part of the film I liked was the Day of the Dead thing, and that is objectively cool. I love that sequence. It's such a cool tracking shot, which is what Lubezki is kind of famous for, is his tracking shots.
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, and like it, but when you look back on it, it almost feels like something that they probably thought up in like pre-production before the script was finished. They were just like, we should have a Day of the Dead scene where like a helicopter
and then just tie it in afterwards, because everything that kind of follows it, all you need afterwards is some exposition about why he was there.
He gets the ring.
You can interchange it.
Yeah,
you could just interchange it with any old fucker, like, oh, he was this dude, oh, he was that dude.
Yeah.
And it would fit into any Bond storyline you wanted.
It's like Quantum of Solace is to Casino Royale in that immediately there's a dead message from M. Like, she leaves a message for him of like, I have one last message, and you're like, no, she's gone, she died, we move on. Why would you immediately make me?
You had like the perfect send off, and then
she's like, I've got one more mission from beyond the grave. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid.
So I don't know about you guys, but the problems for me with this film all kind of stem from Blofeld and their attempt to make Blofeld this all-encompassing villain, and kind of clumsily trying to relate him to like things like Vesper, and him being a half-brother, which has no payoff whatsoever.
Oh my god,
Beyond
the half-brother thing's even more... I'd forgotten about that detail until rewatching it. That is even more egregious than the whole I'm the author of all your pain shit. Like, okay, so...
Me and Jacob's favourite line.
Hell yeah.
Personally,
for reference, basically Jake and Tommy just say, I am the author of all your pain all of the time. So that's what's going on there, if anybody's wondering.
My general opinions on this film is that it's actually not terrible. It's mostly just distinctly average. Like, it's completely watchable, but just nothing that you would never like choose to watch it. There's nothing particularly gripping. It's more just a film that if it's on, it passes the time sort of thing. And Craig, you know, even though he clearly hates himself a lot more on this film than any other film. Or what with all the shit behind the scenes of like, I'd rather slash my wrists, blah blah blah. You know, that definitely seeps into the film. But by and large, watchable until that scene where he reveals he's the grand puppeteer of the entire franchise thus far, because it completely retroactively ruins previous iterations if you choose to accept it as canon.
It also doesn't make sense. We know what their motivations were. Javier Bardem wanted to kill M. Mads Mikkelsen was in debt. That we already know that. Like,
but there's always a bigger boss above the boss.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, I wouldn't mind, say, if it was something kind of more general, that they all happen to work for Spectre, and whilst they're on their own, like, I don't know, missions, their own MO, like the fact that Bond kept killing Spectre operatives was what made Blofeld angry, and therefore that was the reason for his vendetta, rather than you were my lost half brother, and I hated you and I killed
Daddy
my dad.
didn't love me. Yeah.
I'd also say
Like,
that this is
fuck off,
some of the weakest like performances as well, and I think that from what I've heard, there's like some stories about big disagreements between Daniel Craig and the director. And I know Daniel Craig really didn't want to do this film. I mean, I think after Skyfall, every other film, he was like, oh yeah, this is going to be my last one, and stuff like that. And I just don't think his performance was, I don't know what it was. Obviously, he's an amazing actor. I think this just was kind of felt a bit flat for me in a lot of ways. Can
we just talk about how bad Christoph Waltz is in this? Because
that as well.
Like he's not even in that much of the film, but like he is awful. And like in a way, it kind of makes sense. Like in your head, you can see like Christoph Waltz, great villain in this film. You can see why they've cast him, but the more you think about it, it really doesn't make sense. Because the best thing about Christoph Waltz is this like really animated charisma he has, especially in like Django Unchained and Inglourious Bastards, where he's got this like he's like quite sort of campy and energetic and like gesturing, and that's like his whole appeal. And then, but when you think about Blofeld, what do you think about? You think about a guy sitting, stroking a cat, saying, "No, Mr. Bond," you know, like
he's very menacing and quiet, and there's like he's sinister in that sort of, like, if you look at the Donald Pleasance portrayal of the character, he's barely in the film he's in anyway, but like when he appears, he's like very quiet, like it'd take a small army to annihilate, you know, all that sort of stuff. It would like he's very quiet, which like you say is completely the complete antithesis to what at least has made Waltz a star up until this point.
It's just not fun to watch Christoph Waltz tone it down. You know?
Yeah.
I'm sure he could do it, but it doesn't work.
I think the writing really hinders him as well, because I think, you know, obviously he's got it in him to give a great performance as this character if he's given the right material to work with, and clearly does not have that. I don't think... I remember thinking more harshly of him before rewatching it. I don't like his performance, but I don't hate it as completely as I once did. I do personally put a lot of the blame down on the writing and probably the direction as well, like how he's handled scene to scene, because like you say, he's just so muted, and he has nothing particularly of interest to say or do.
I mean, bringing back Mr. White, also, like, after skipping a film, you're like, remember this guy? And you're like, oh, the guy got shot in the leg in the end of the very last scene in the fucking...
He's everywhere.
He's back and he's got a fit daughter.
Yeah, he's got a fit daughter, and you're like, so remember that guy you barely remember? Yeah, his daughter. And at that point, you're so many like degrees of separation.
Mr. White got laid.
Yeah.
Now Mr. White is like almost one of the most important characters in the entire franchise because of the films that have been based on his daughter.
And I'm just like, oh, you didn't need that. You didn't need that connection. I know now it continues to play in.
And now when he shows up in Casino Royale, I have to think James Bond is going to fuck this guy's daughter.
That's
like,
weird.
That would have made that last line even better, though.
That's another thing about this
James
film.
Bond, and I fucked your daughter.
There is just something jarring about that. I guess this film has a good amount of spectacle. I mean, none of the action sequences...
Spectacle? Got him. You said spectacle.
I'm loving... What Adam's distraught at is that there was total silence after that pun. No, he's proper hurt.
Yeah, you should have said it.
It's so subjective.
It wasn't even a bad joke. We're just so low IQ. Yeah, it has a good amount of spectacle, but it also there's nothing. That was a great joke there. It was pretty good. There's nothing like that stand out in it when I think back to it. You have like the Day of the Dead sequence is like so head and shoulders above the rest of it. You have like an okay car chase. You have the weird bit on the plane where he like drives the plane. Down
that's
the slopes.
Fucking weird. Yeah. It's not even that well choreographed or executed of a scene. That's a really good point, actually. The action in general, it kind of they set up really extravagant locations and concepts, like, oh, we've got like the Rome car chase, we've got super duper brand new like like concept Aston Martin fitted with all these crazy gadgets, and then Evil Man in a concept Jaguar. We've got like some of the most expensive, lavish Bond cars ever. What are they going to do? Drive at a relatively pedestrian rate around the streets of Rome.
They had that really stupid like humour bit in that as well, where he's got the
with
old
the
man
Fiat 500,
in
where they. I mean, but the thing is, that's the only thing that happens in the whole car chase.
Yeah, that is the bit I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, like from my recently rewatching it was like, oh, that was the only kind of memorable bit, and therefore like kind of I almost rated that bit higher than any of the rest of the car chase, because at least it was something. They were doing something instead of just like two nice cars ambling around Italy. Like fuck that. And then like you have a plane going down a mountain, and somehow it's fucking boring.
And
like,
you've got the train sequence. The train fight is also quite
I think that was okay.
It's okay, but it's still kind of got the goofy element to it, where they're still trying to shoehorn in a scene where he's like hitting him and nothing's happening, and he's kind of going, what? And things like that.
I mean,
I also can't believe in any of these films they don't stop the train when one of the carriages blows up or anything. Like to have the same in Skyfall, like a crane literally comes off and takes off half the train. They're like, we should keep going.
They're 10 minutes delayed, Tommy. People have got places to be.
I guess what I like about that scene is just like the pure physicality of Dave Bautista in that. He's just like he's quite threatening. You're like, wow.
Yeah, I would have liked to have him talk. Actually, I can see where they were going for not making him talk, but I would.
It does feel like a wasted opportunity.
He needed to be more characterized for me to care, but yeah.
He has one line, Tommy, and that is as he's dying, he goes, "Shit," which is so lame. Also, like, that would have been just so cooler if he just said nothing.
But the lamest action part of the film is by far the bit where James Bond just shoots the helicopter out of the sky with a pistol.
Oh my god!
And it's just like, really? Is that what we're doing?
That's so contrived.
But it's just like feels like someone was just like really tired, had to finish off the screenplay, and he just wanted to go to bed. He's like, oh, and then James Bond he shoots pistol, with the helicopter, and then the helicopter. Just like falls down. I mean, not only is it like difficult to believe. I mean, it's James Bond. We can believe like, fucking lasers on ice and invisible cars and all this. Like, you don't have to be realistic. But just like, not only is it just like unbelievable, he's on a boat and he fucking shoots like a pistol and he takes out a helicopter. It just feels like stupid. It's just like underwhelming, and it's not fun to watch. It's just like, wow, is that really how we finish off the film? But I think about
finale
Skyfall.
Was really weird, especially with all the demolition charges in MI6. Yeah. Oh my god.
Skyfall had a fucking helicopter fly into a house, and it looks so cool. It looks so sick, and it has like this amazing like just like all these like big whizzy bits and like memorable shots, and just like oh wow, that's got James Bond shooting a fucking helicopter out of the sky with a pistol.
I did really like the setting of that final sequence. It has such potential of being in the old MI6, which does lead nicely in from the previous film, in that we did see it get blown up. It does make sense that no one would actually probably be paying attention to the burnt out remains.
Right,
and M also fighting that bloke. I quite like the idea of him, getting like into having to fight someone and having to like actively do what he says.
George, there is an amazing line in that as well. It's like, now we know what C stands for,
and the whole audience goes.
That's genuinely the best line in the entire film.
I'll give it
careless,
that.
And everyone goes,
I'll give it that.
No, but I like that. That's almost like a dad joke. It's an anti-human moment. Although I will say, whilst it's cool to see M kind of getting stuck in, the whole C storyline is very reminiscent of the trade disputes in Star Wars prequels. Like it's like the bit where your brain switches off and you go, oh,
it also just has
are we talking about boring politics?
It just has nothing to say. It's like, is surveillance good? And then the film's answer at the end is, oh no, probably not.
Sort of.
Not if bad people have it.
Yeah, exactly.
That reminds me, guys.
We can spy our own people.
We need to talk about the torture scene, because that torture scene is by far the stupidest part of the film.
What, it's like gonna erase his memories with a drill or something?
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I'm going to put the drill in here so you won't know how to fire a gun anymore. And then 5 seconds later, he's out of firing a gun. And you're like, well, did it work? Does James Bond just have a...
If anything, he seemed to make him even better at firing a gun, because in the subsequent action sequence, it's like he's playing Call of Duty on
His
England.
KD spread after that was
he's
insane. Yeah, it was just like... Okay.
To be fair, we haven't seen the
bullets.
We haven't seen the statistics on that surgery. It could be that there's like a 7 in 10 success rate or whatever.
This is very true.
There's like
Specify.
there's a 1 in 100 chance you actually improve his no scope. Like
the technique wasn't peer
he
reviewed.
managed
It
to
was it was just,
Yeah, I can't wait for
He
the clinical
shoots-
case study report that comes out.
And he shoots one pipeline, and then the entire thing blows up in the most extravagant
my
that is a cool shot, but it is like
It's a cool shot, but
But
it
it's
makes no
utter,
sense.
yeah, it does make you go, oh really?
yeah. Okay,
Wow.
so
Oh, and sorry, the last thing where Bond gets in the car and just drives off, and they're like, where's the car gone?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like,
Lame,
really?
oh yeah. It's in Italy.
Yeah.
I guess the one crucial thing this film does is it kind of sets up the ensemble cast of like Moneypenny and Q like more solidly. It's not really much credit to the film, but that is like kind of what when I remember this film, it feels like it's trying to like get more down, like where Skyfall was setting that stuff up, where like he meets Q and like and he meets Moneypenny and you've got Ray Fiennes. Is Ray Fiennes in Skyfall, or am I?
Yeah, he is,
yeah.
and he's like a kind of he's like more of a rival, and like they don't know whether to trust him or not.
I know he is. You're right.
Turns
Yeah,
out to be-
He's in the court case. So it's more like setting up. This to me in my head is like this is like where they kind of settle on the cast, which makes the next film, No Time to Die, a bit confusing to me because it feels like they've kind of just set all this stuff up, and then No Time to Die, the most recent one directed by Cary Fukanaga, previously was supposed to be directed by Danny Boyle, which is a bit weird. The long delayed No Time to Die, which we've all seen. Once they've got all this stuff set up, they're just kind of immediately just binning it with this like very, very definitive end to the Craig saga. Should we just say spoiler warning from the get-go?
Oh yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah. So what did you lads? What did you lads think of No Time to Die?
I really enjoyed it. I like that.
I'm glad he's dead.
Oh, you just had to say it, Rupert.
And Hugh Dennis is in it too.
First of all, Hugh Dennis is in it, which is the most important thing. But really, I like that. They did bring. It is fan service as a film. Remember this guy? He's back. Remember this person? They're back. But in a way, despite the fact that all 4 previous films, went from peak to trough, and they were a bit all over the place, this did attempt to bring them all together, and in a way that honestly works for me. In that, like, everything does culminate in a way, and I do think it feels to me like a fitting end to Daniel Craig's character, which is everyone has been disposable, and everything in his pursuit of justice, good old-fashioned British justice at that. And in this, he goes, "No, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the good of someone else, not just Queen and country."
Yeah,
and
I like that aspect of it. For sure.
Yeah, go on.
I don't want to say that this film's perfect at all. There are some ridiculous things in it and some hilariously bad moments.
The blood stuff gets a bit ridiculous, doesn't it?
But overall, this is for the most part the general thing I walked away from was I had fun, and it makes me look fondly back on the whole Daniel Craig era as a whole.
I think that's fair enough. I think it's better than Spectre for sure, and it has real stand-up moments. What I'd say is Spectre is very consistent, apart from the fact that the first bit is so much better than the rest of it. It's very consistently alright to bad, whereas this film has like some really, really good bits, and it has some fucking terrible bits, and it feels like you can almost like see the reshoots happening in front of you. It feels like it's almost being like live edited at points. Like it's. I agree with you. I actually I felt really down on the film in like as it was sort of coming to an end, and I was like, wow, this isn't great to me. And then I actually kind of liked the ending in particular. I've read some interesting things about like the ending and how people have taken it, and I can understand. If someone said to me, I fucking hate the ending of No Time to Die, I think I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. I don't think it's for everyone, and I think it's a kind of bold move, and I can see why some people be like, oh well, you know, this isn't really for me. Like, why did they have to do that? You know, it's unnecessary. I can kind of see that, but I did kind of like it. I think that it's executed well, even though I kind of I felt it was going to happen. The way it's done, it does feel quite heartfelt in that way. So yeah, I'm mixed on it overall. I think it's a bit of a fucking mess as a whole film.
What about you, Tommy? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I really liked it. When I left the cinema, I remember really liking it. And I think part of the reason I liked quite a bit of it is that it kind of corrects a lot of the things that I didn't like in Spectre, particularly his relationship with Mr. White's daughter. I say this, but I've actually forgotten her name, so I kind of
Yes, you do.
Yeah, what's her name in the film?
Oh,
we could look this up. It's quite this film.
No, we've already done.
I had forgotten who she was before the film started. I was like,
yeah,
was she in Spectre?
I was the exact
Madeline
same.
Swan.
I think. What's her name? Sorry.
Madeline Swan.
So as I was saying, Madeline Swan. Yeah.
Doctor Madeline Swan.
Oh, sorry.
Our favourite character.
Yeah. So the thing was, Spectre spent a lot of time trying to convince us that this is Bond's perfect match because she grew up around killers and she only loves killers and she can understand him. And like, I mean, Blofeld was saying this. I was like, I don't think Blofeld is like the right authority to tell us who Bond's rival.
Yeah.
And I just didn't buy it at all because there were a lot of problems with the characters in that film. But then this, I quite like that they gave her a bit more of a backstory. They gave her a bit more to do. We got to explore that a bit more. I really enjoyed the opening sequence with Safin in the mask and the lake.
So cool.
I don't know why. That bit was really cool. And actually, it's like some girls in the cinema screamed the bit where he first shows up at the window. And that's when I knew we were in for like
weirdly
a decent...
horror-ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's a massive horror vibe, and I think that's a really cool direction for Bond to go in.
And she's like playing with a Tamagotchi upstairs, and it's like it's all kinds of messed up. But then. Yeah, there are issues with the film. It's by no means perfect. I mean, when we talk about suspending disbelief, the stuff with the blood and the virus inside the blood, where it's like, if you ever touch someone, you'll die.
Not a virus, nanobots.
Yeah.
Be specific.
Yes, of course.
It does feel very Brosnan in that moment, doesn't it? It feels very Brosnan.
It does.
Yeah.
And not in a very flattering way.
No, not at all. And yeah, some of the action scenes just kind of beggared belief a little bit as well. But it was, I think it was a strong fit. It was a lot stronger than Spectre. I would definitely put it in the top tier of the films. I think as a cinematic experience, it was really good as well. And I didn't have any kind of problem with them killing him off because I thought they might as well. They might as well do that because we know the actor's not coming back. They might as well start fresh. Yeah. So I didn't really have a problem with that at all. I thought it was a pretty good send off.
I would say that I mean, looking at some of the negative reviews for this film, it seems that a widespread take among the people that absolutely loathe this film is the specific fact that they kill off James Bond. And to me, and I think we all seem to be in agreement that is not only the least of this film's problems, but actually like a kind of refreshing, interesting thing to do. In so much as, sure, you could say, it's subverting expectations for the sake of it, but it feels natural. It feels like a good way to close off the story. The fact that it's completely fresh and new kind of makes it exciting. It's like a very completely different experience than you would get from any other James Bond. Like, he feels more vulnerable, I guess retrospectively, through this. And the title of the film is now quite ironic. The thing is, and this is typical of us, Rupert, but I once again mirror your opinion almost exactly, and it's a wonder at points why we even have a podcast when we just seem to parrot each other.
It should just be like one of us just monologuing and pretending that someone else.
You should do it in shifts.
I'll just nod. Yeah, okay, well, that's good. Right, I think for me the biggest problem with this film, as you said, is the blood. I find it completely takes me out of the film. It's so nanobots. It's so ridiculous. It's so fucking sci-fi. It's something that fits better into like a Mission Impossible film or something completely separate. It's just too much for me, and my suspension of disbelief has fucking left the building by that point. Like, I just can't. And it's tied into a villain that seems to have absolutely nothing with regards to reasonable motive. Like, it's incredibly vague as to what he.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Tommy,
like, why he wants to achieve what he wants to achieve.
Tommy, can you tell me why Rami Malek wants to kill loads of people with nanobots?
Oh, I can't do that, Rupert. I'd love to.
That is
No
a
idea.
good point, because
it's also not entirely explained why he wants Dr. Madeline Swan. Why he wants Dr. Madeline Swan. I guess he mentioned stuff about feeling a connection with her because he saved her life.
At the end, there's a throwaway line that he loved her this whole time.
Yeah.
But they never really established that until he makes that reveal, and that reveal is literally as James Bond is like met with his fate, and he then brutally murders him.
Yeah.
James Bond murdering him.
He gets very little screen time, Safin, actually, doesn't he? I mean, he has a really great introduction where he's like killing Dr. Madeline Swan's mum in that house, but then we don't see him until I think I don't even know, like maybe in an hour and a half in or something.
Yeah, it's after Felix is dead.
Yeah, it's way
which
late
also
in the film.
felt like a pointless thing to do to me, to be honest. The Felix thing, it's just like, oh, we got this character, we better as well like kill him off. It's like,
yeah, if we're wrapping up everything, everyone has to go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Could I just
Mate, you've got to clear Daniel Craig's desk.
well,
His last day at work.
New Felix, new Bond. Fuck off. Let's go.
they should have just had like an absolute genocide of every ensemble character.
Everyone he's ever spoken to.
Because like
That's why I wanted the nanobots.
Now that
That was the nanobots. It was to kill off everyone that Daniel Craig's ever spoken to in the context of James
But
Bond.
like, that is a good point, because in the next film, like they've set up this ensemble cast with like Ralph Fiennes and stuff. Are they going to be coming back and they just have a different Bond? Like,
That's a
Yeah,
really
maybe. I mean, they did keep Judi Dench's M. They
did
did keep Judi Dench's M for
They
the.
did exactly. So
maybe.
That's
true.
I just wanted to on the topic of the ending. I just wanted to read. David Mitchell wrote quite an interesting article on like his opinion of it, and this seems to be like the core. Like this is about what I'm basing my core understanding of like the general dislike of the ending. And he sort of says, when Connery wins at roulette, when Roger Moore attempts re-entry, when Pierce Brosnan merrily drives a tank through St. Petersburg, they're all portraying a man destined to lie bleeding, heartbroken and alone, missing the daughter he never really knew, waiting to be blown to bits by his country's own missiles. It's quite the buzzkill, which I can sympathise with.
That assumes that James Bond has this entire time been one character.
That has been the understanding.
But if logistically that doesn't really make any sense.
No, but that is.
If you look at it, if you pay any attention to it, and I think this is the first like sort of sub part of the franchise that's ever directly addressed this notion of, well, this Bond is within his own era, where Casino Royale explicitly sets him up as becoming James Bond, becoming the character we know, hence the inclusion of the soundtrack right at the very end, where it's like, here's the character that we're familiar with in a new context, in a new era. Like, how logistically could we possibly have a character that is 30-something or in the fucking 60s still be 30 or 40 something in the noughties, the 10s and the 20s? It just doesn't make sense.
I think he's more talking about
to kind of
James Bond as like a cultural presence in people's minds.
I know, but like the notion that people seem to have, like that some of the detractors who are like, oh, maybe James Bond is just dead forever. Like, that's not happening. Like, there is no way in hell.
They make way too much money for that to happen. Yeah. Exactly.
He'll be reborn in some new form, in some new shape, and people will see this as the mini saga that it was, right? And I think that outrage is kind of more based off of, I guess, expectation, which is fine because you can expect what you want from a film. But I think it's a little like a bit of a flawed perspective if you analyze it in any like meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to like personal preference, and like people do have an emotional relationship with this franchise more than they do with a lot, because it's kind of like seen as like a comfort food, especially for like English men. It's like everybody likes James. You go and watch James Bond.
English blokes.
Yeah, English blokes. You go down, you see James Bond. You're like, oh yeah, that's what I would do. Like that. That is kind of, I feel like, how people like view it in like a lot of ways. Like to each extent, if you like the James Bond films, I think ultimately with No Time to Die, it's just like, it feels more just like a bit of a missed opportunity for me in terms of like, there's so much here that's good, and I feel like it's just not a very well constructed film, and it looks great. It has all these like aesthetic qualities to it that are really good, and but like in terms of the storyline, Lashana Lynch, the woman who comes in, who is the new 007, they like bring her in, and it's kind of built up in the beginning to be this like big thing, and she is 007, so clearly it's supposed to be very significant, and she does almost nothing in the film, and then concludes her sort of rivalry with James Bond by like apologizing to him and just giving his like code name back, which is just like, why even
total that? Wrong way round.
Yeah,
that
like,
should have definitely been the other way around, where it's like, no, you've earned this. That should have been the
that's a good shout.
Because I liked that dynamic, and I liked what, you know, them being up against each other and respecting each other, but also being
like, you're old.
Yeah, I liked that. But then the idea that, but at the end of the day, Bond, it will always be you. You're like, oh no, because if you're going to kill him off, you're not helping your case here.
Yeah,
commit to it.
Yeah,
be like, bitch, you old, get out.
Yeah, and like that, because that's the most obvious arc you could possibly have. So then you'd have to do something a bit more interesting with those two. And like for a character who just gets so hyped up, she just does nothing. And there's a bunch of stuff in this film, like the Russian scientist character in this film.
He was
every scene he's in, so annoying. Like some of the tonal shifts of this film are dreadful. Like one of the opening scenes where they like go into the lab, where you come up to the Hugh Dennis like appearance.
They should have had him as the main.
He should take over as Bond.
He should have just been in.
We all agree with that.
No, what as Bond? Yeah. Okay.
They have this great shot of like these people. You've seen it in the trailers, where you've got the people abseiling down, and it's like sunset in London, and they're like walking down the building, and it's like silent, and they like cut into it. It's like, oh, this is dramatic. And then they come into the corridor, and it's very like tense. And then they like cut to like my sandwich has greater IQ than you in Mother Russia. It's like, who the fuck is this guy? And then like they conclude his arc where they're like, oh, by the way, this guy's racist, and he gets killed. It's like,
mate, the racist turn for him at the end of having been a goofball the entire film. And they said, by the way, I believe in racial genocide. You're like, what? And then he dies, and you're left going, what a strange left turn to take with the comedic relief character.
Yeah, forgot about that. Yeah.
If you want to talk about like woke pandering, that is the only moment in this film that is woke pandering, because it's like, we have to kill this guy, right, he's racist, right, he's dead. It's like, it's just so fucking lazy.
See, look, racism gone.
Yeah,
we did it.
It's just like, oh, well done, I guess. Like well, I don't know. Like, it's just elements like that.
I have a very important point to make here, which is regard to how you would behave in a biosafety 4 lab, and you would not be pretending to put smallpox in someone's fucking sandwich. That's just not acceptable.
That's a Mitchell and Webb look sketch.
It really is.
It is as well.
Suit again.
you not acceptable, not unrealistic. Took me completely out of the franchise, and I hope in the future that's rectified.
Jacob, would you be more happy if Hugh Dennis's character turns, I'm reporting you to HR, guys, sorry.
Yeah, and he says, right, I'm going to speak to the biological safety officer, and we're going to have strong words about reporting this as a near-miss incident.
Jacob, would it simply be allowed if you put a label on someone's lunch without tampering it, which just said the word smallpox on it?
Unfortunately, that's not how Category 4 containment works. If it was containment level 2, that would be okay. But 4,
okay.
no.
And is smallpox containment level 4?
Oh yeah, big time.
I also wanted to point out that Christoph Waltz is also in this film, and his performance is actually I think his performance is actually like way worse than it is in Spectre. He's like really, like, that scene with those two is so bad, where he like just randomly gets angry and he starts shouting at him and like holding his face, obviously because he has to like touch him to kill him with the nanobots. That's like the only reason it happens. And it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's just such a terrible scene. I just thought it was like so contrived in like how it was set up. I don't know.
I think we've had a lot of negativity, and I think we should balance ourselves out with a bit more levity. So,
Sure.
So Tommy, give us some counters to our somewhat scathing attacks that have been going on so far.
I'm going to talk about I thought the energy of this film. There were clearly some links to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I don't know if you guys picked up on that as well. There were like a couple of musical cues.
Time in the world.
Yeah, like they did that quite a lot, and they did obviously the idea of losing a loved one in a Bond relationship was quite prominent as well. So I quite like that. I thought the music in this film was quite strong. I also quite liked the Billie Eilish song. I thought that was quite strong.
Yeah, I don't know why people hate that quite as much
Yeah.
as they do. It's not like the best song, but it's
I also
good.
didn't really get the some of the reviews and some of the criticism that I think this film got before it even came out. Maybe because Phoebe Waller-Bridge was at the helm. They kept talking about this being like a woke Bond that they didn't really recognise. But I didn't
not
feel that
really.
way at all. I thought this was a Bond that I recognised. I mean, it's strange not to see him like, you know, sleeping around every 5 seconds. Like he really fails to pull in this film, like with everyone.
Yeah, God Lord, he tries.
Not even the Cuban girl wanted to have it.
He can't. Yeah, he strikes out.
He
with
struck
Ana de
out
Armas,
bad
and
with
that might
everyone.
be that might be the most. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
but
hard to watch.
She
But
wouldn't do it to me though, so it's fine.
yeah, but I thought it was. I thought it was absolutely fine. It was definitely still a Bond I recognised. I think that criticism doesn't really come from a place that I
mean, I think it makes sense as a Bond that has evolved, as we've been talking about with the previous films. The Bond that has evolved over this saga clearly makes sense arriving in this trajectory. You know, like that he's been a far more emotional Bond that cares about like people and has a great amount of love in him, even if it comes out in like these violent ways, which I think is fine. It makes for a far more cinematic experience that way. And so having him kind of come to terms with that in this, you know, life or death, you kind of the universe comes crashing down way is very melodramatic, but it completely fits within the arc of, say, you know, Casino Royale or any of these films. Like it all works. I also like at the beginning the whole notion of he has to say goodbye to Vesper. Like you're still not just kind of pushing that aside and being like, oh yeah, we're done with that, and like bringing it into the foreground and say, well, this is something we've introduced to this character, we have to address it, we have to provide it closure, which provides to me probably the finest action sequence of the film, that opening stretch before he says goodbye to Lea Seydoux, where, you know, they're fighting in some Italian city, I can't quite remember what.
I agree with you.
But that's awesome. There's great choreography there with like the cars and
the motorbike bit where he goes up the stairs is sick.
Yeah.
I will say the guy with the robot eye, that is hokey, cheesy bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And
The robot eye
not
stuff,
100%
it's
on
completely
that.
what you mentioned earlier. It's like, it kind of felt like a Marvel concept, the whole using the electronic eye.
Yes.
And as did the blood. And I tell you what it reminded me of. Have you seen Sherlock season 4? Where the main villain of that is someone that has like this power where they can pretty much charismatically control everyone. It really reminded me of that. It's kind of like, just taking it a step too far where it just doesn't make sense anymore. Jumping the shark, I think they call it, don't they?
Yeah.
But
there's a bit of that going on.
yeah, but it was okay for me. It didn't like detract from. Again, as long as you suspend disbelief, I think it's all.
If
good.
we're on the nice train,
I think that's
If we're on the nice train, I think the first 20 minutes of the film is pretty amazing. I also think that Lea Seydoux as a character in their romance is. I think Lea Seydoux, her performance in the film is really, really good. She
absolutely.
I think she was really good in Spectre as well, actually, but she obviously didn't get as much screen time or enough time to shine. I think the believability of their relationship feels like, because you get that opening stretch of them just like having a romantic time, you know, going around Europe and like having loads of sex, it's much more believable and it feels more lived in. And that opening, and I agree, the soundtrack slaps. It's like Hans Zimmer, he does a pretty great job when they bring in the On Her Majesty's Secret Service theme is awesome. I also think the film it's not quite as good looking as Skyfall, but it's the cinematography is pretty great, and there are some really memorable moments like that forest in the mist bit is
I was going to say that's
looking.
the cinematography wise, that is one of the most gorgeous bits, and a really cool bit of choreographed action again. But if again, I think that's a key example of the suspense of disbelief. He kind of wanders into every action scene. Sorry to derail your point, Rupert, but okay. he kind of wanders into every action scene completely unfazed by bullets coming anywhere near him. He will walk out into the path of fire and will just be like brr, brr, and then everyone's fucking dead and he's like, cool.
I actually generally
on to the next one,
the action
chaps.
That was a big problem for me in the final set piece as well. It was a lot of Bond walking around. He would take cover, shoot some people and then go, and then you have that kind of cool one take bit. Wasn't like the best one take I've seen. Cary Fukanaga obviously did it because there's the famous long take in True Detective, which is much better. To be honest.
That is one of the best ever. Yeah.
Yeah, and it felt like a little bit of a weak imitation to me. Honestly, it was pretty cool, but it wasn't like, I thought the action was just okay. But I would say it's probably a bit better than
it's
the
quite
action.
stylish. I liked how it was memorable. Like I found like lots of the action scenes memorable. Like
better than Spectre.
Like the one in was it in Cuba? The one with Ana de Armas. That was cool. Like once we got past all the hokey Marvel bullshit of the nanobots killing.
What? Where everyone died
Spectre.
of mega disease
Except for
all
him.
at once.
Yes, everyone got the fucking bubonic plague or some
Blofeld
shit.
was also somehow involved from prison.
Yeah, well, he had the robot. They did it through the robotic eye.
Rupert,
Right. Sorry. My bad. Yeah, I guess generally the same. I just think that plot-wise could have done with a lot of work, and the writing wasn't great all the way through, and it just feels like it was just needed a lot of tidying up, and there were just problems with it. But I do think there were like real gems in this film.
Yeah,
I will say action-wise, might be my, except from probably Casino Royale.
Casino Royale's better. Come on.
Yeah.
No, but in terms of action, this is probably I remember every single action sequence in this really fondly.
Yeah, it's very distinctive.
Like you've got the first horror sequence, which is we've not really seen before from Bond, and then you've got in the town, particularly when he's like mad at the Dr. Swan, had to remember her name again, and was they're shooting at the bulletproof windows, and you can see the windows continuing to crack and and he's just
that's
staring.
Great.
Oh god, yeah.
That's actually great.
And you wonder, are they done?
Incredible,
It's
man.
fantastic.
And she's freaking the fuck. Yeah, I love that. The Forest Moon of Endor bit, which is what essentially is awesome. I really like the last one take. I've seen True Detective season 1, but I'm not that attached to think that it was cheap imitation. I'd forgotten. I was just watching the film going, this was cool.
Yeah,
it was okay.
I like him walking around double tapping everyone.
I will say I saw a film called The Last Purge. It was like basically just one of the Purge films, but like it was like a mostly black cast. It was a pretty terrible film, but it actually did like this one action scene, basically the exact same action scene as that one in No Time to Die, with like this fight with guns in a stairwell, and it does it like, I would actually recommend you YouTube it. It's like just a way better version of that. I just didn't get as much sense of like intensity from it. I didn't get like much physicality from it. I wasn't just thinking like, it's not True Detective, it's shit. It's just like I didn't feel the momentum.
See, so I personally did get that
fair enough,
feeling of like, for me, I was watching going, there's so many people. How's he going to get through them?
Yeah. How's
he still going? I really like even that final fight with Rami Malek, even though he didn't get the chance to shine. But I almost was okay with that as well, because that's almost the focus isn't really on that. It's more. The focus of this film is the end of James Bond rather than the next villain he's got. So even though
I love how he fucking executes him. That was cool.
Yeah, that final execution thing. It's
oh yeah.
What we've grown to love about this modern James Bond is that it's not this. He's not thrown into a pool of sharks and gone, make it snappy.
And then he surfs on one of them.
Yeah. You've not got it's a cold card. Like he's got, I've got the one up on you, and he goes, fuck you, and shoots him in a horrible way.
Yeah. No, like funny lines or anything. Just like
all I'd ask,
blunt, brutal execution.
All I'd ask is next time they do a scene like that, he empties the clip, reloads, and then does another one. That would have been cool.
Yeah, that would have been savage. Well, that would have transformed it into a point of comedy in a strange way, wouldn't it?
And then he goes, finds another gun, and he does it again.
He just does a sweep. It's a 20-minute bit.
I found a rocket launcher. I'm gonna save this one for last. Let me go get another AK.
And then throws him into the nanobot lake.
I will say though, Jacob, I kind of disagree in so much that I find it frustrating that you're going to build Bond to the end of, not only the saga but his life, and the villain you put him alongside is so forgettable. Like the villain that trumps him this time and gets him, the villain, the only villain that could ever kill Bond is some random dickhead that we see for 5 minutes and we have no real idea of
what he wants
anything in particular about him. That's not to say he couldn't have been the worthwhile villain, but they do not give him that opportunity whatsoever.
I do agree that the fact that he kills like Spectre were in the last film, were grown up to be the secret organisation behind everything. We're only in the shadows. You'll never catch us. And then they're like, they all get the plague in one setting. Yeah, you're like, that's it? You undo all of their fucking all this secret organisation? Nah, they're gone.
Everyone in Spectre was in that one room, mate. Everyone.
And
the way that he's walking around going, when he's walking around going, everyone's here. You're like,
yeah, that's very cheesy as well. Yeah,
like
it is.
The Spectre Lads Holiday to Cuba did not have a good ending.
No, it didn't.
That's a different film.
They were team building in Cuba, and it didn't go well.
But like I said, I did kind of appreciate that they were. That's what I kind of liked about this, was they were kind of correcting what I didn't like about Spectre, in that they killed everyone in Spectre. So they were just like, let's just forget about them. They're all dying in this house in Cuba.
You took it as an apology.
Yeah, and then they went and killed Blofeld as well. And like you said, Adam, I completely with you that it was quite a random villain to end up killing Bond, but I am kind of glad they didn't try and make it Blofeld. Because I don't think it could have worked.
That's very valid.
I'm kind of glad.
I would have almost suspected it if they committed to it, even if it was terrible. Because I don't think Rami Malek was that good, to be honest, at his performance.
It was very similar to Mr. Robot, if you've ever seen that, I thought. Mr. Robot with an accent. But,
I'm going to talk like this. I'm very evil.
What did we think of the kid angle?
Good question.
It didn't really add. It was just
James Bond having a secret child.
I'll tell you what I found confusing about it is the way that they address it. I conceptually no problem with it at all, and I think it builds upon all of the elements of emotion and kind of a James Bond that is willing to adapt and grow in that way rather than just be stubbornly set in his ways. The problem I have with it is that they do this strange thing where she's like, "Oh, it's not your kid," and he's like, okay, but it looks like me. And she's like, oh no, it's not your kid. And then they basically keep acknowledging that it definitely is his kid, but without ever saying it. And then at the end, it's like, yeah, I knew it was my kid. Like, why didn't you just fucking say it was his kid?
Nah.
Why did we do this strange beating around the bush?
I think that's fine.
It makes no fucking sense.
I think it's fine because it's kind of like, it's obviously his kid. Like, there's no doubt in the audience's mind. You see it as his kid. And then she's in denial because the whole point is he's come back. And they're just making up because they haven't spoken for years, and he still basically kind of fucked her over by just assuming the worst of her and leaving her on the train. And then it's kind of when it's that final line where it's yeah, she does have your eyes. It's kind of the final admission. She's kind of just basically saying it's a less cheesy way of him going oh, I love you too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's basically, and I think it basically works for that. I did that personally. Yeah, that didn't really frustrate me too much.
I don't know. I just thought it was kind of handled in a shorter space of time in the film where you didn't have enough time for it to be particularly consequential, or it just felt kind of messily executed. Well, I do appreciate what you're saying, having that kind of building to that finale and that acceptance and understanding that she goes through more so than he goes through. I think that's a very satisfying end, particularly for her character. It just felt like a needlessly sort of convoluted additional detail that they chucked in, that felt just kind of messily written.
By the way, do we know if Bond speaks French? Because if not, it would be quite awkward that his kid pretty much only speaks a language that he can't understand.
Pretty sure he speaks French at some point.
He must do, right? I can't remember.
They do that. They do that
understand
a
it
lot.
when I say I love you.
They do that a lot of. They do that in a lot of Bond films. I feel like I've seen that where he's just surprisingly he just knows a language.
He just knows bits and bobs of every language, right?
Yeah.
But that's he's an international spy. You'd assume that you'd need your GCSEs and your modern languages to even get in the door.
All right, Jacob. Right? No need for a personal attack on me. Okay, right.
Let's attack on both of us.
He did grow up in Scotland, and I don't know what their exam boards are like, so I'm gonna have to call a strict.
I thought you were gonna say I don't know what they speak.
do they have infrastructure in Scotland? I don't really know if they go to school up there.
I mean, all we see of Skyfall is
one house.
It's just it's a valley it's a house in the middle of a valley. That is Scotland.
That house is actually Glasgow, but they blew it up, so it's gone now.
Americans would never know.
Well, they didn't. Did you not see today? Sorry to date this video.
Wait, what?
The COP 26?
Yeah, the guy said we're in Edinburgh right now.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Oh, no. So that is how they view it. But Tommy, in our defence, I think they might be interested in failed Latin GCSEs for international spies.
Indeed, yeah. I really think that Bond knowing a little, just to dabble a little bit in Latin could have really helped him out in a lot of these situations. While he was dealing with all those plants on the poison island, I think that would have been
I can
really
tell
helpful.
you what the Latin name of this butterfly is. Oh, shut up, James. No one cares. Right, so lads, final ranking of Bond films. We're going to start with you, Jacob.
Oh, with me. Okay, right. Well, then I would say Casino Royale is an easy top. It's really tough between Skyfall and No Time to Die for me. I think I would probably... It might be because I've seen it more recently, but genuinely for me it is No Time to Die second for me.
Okay.
Skyfall third. And then... It doesn't really matter with the other two. I just would rather they didn't exist.
No, you got to pick. You got to rank them. Which one?
Oh God! Choose
one?
which of my children is my least favourite. I would go with. I think I had more fun with Spectre. Quantum of Solace really does nothing for me at all.
Yeah.
Adam, hit me.
Okay, so Casino Royale, Skyfall, No Time to Die, Spectre, Quantum of Solace.
Okay, Tommy.
Casino Royale, easy top. I think No Time to Die second for me as well, possibly because I've seen it more recently.
Wow.
Then for me it's Skyfall, and then I think I'm going to put Quantum of Solace above Spectre just because I really find
it is shorter.
I think Quantum of Solace's worst crime is being kind of dull, whereas Spectre just kind of actively hurts
the whole
me.
retconning shit is really aggressively bad. Yeah,
so for me that kind of pushes it down to the bottom. But it is quite difficult for me for second and third with No Time to Die and Skyfall. I think they're very close in quality.
Okay.
Adam, you're going to hate me, but I have the exact same ranking as you.
I knew you did. I know you too well.
Oh, yeah, so mine is also Casino Royale, Skyfall, No Time to Die, Spectre, and Quantum of Solace. So, yeah. Any final words on Craig? Craig, avoid Danny.
Craig.
I mean, what I will say is that the No Time to Die, he did seem to have like a bit more of the passion, a bit more of the joie de vivre that he clearly lost whilst shooting Spectre.
Definitely seemed like he cared.
And I think if regardless of our kind of differing opinions on the quality of the film, I'm glad that as an actor, he got to go out delivering a performance he was passionate about and created a film that he clearly cared about, even if it was in a kind of Harrison Ford Han Solo, please kill my character for the love of God kind of way. I enjoyed it on that level. So yeah.
Wait, hang on. Okay, just to round things off, I'm going to say who should be the next Bond. You get one pick, but I'm kind of like tempted to say like you can pick an actor who might be too old, like who should have been. Because personally, I probably feel like the Craig films probably should have neatly ended at Skyfall, and then who do you cast at like that point? But you basically just pick whoever you want. I'm gonna say that I'll open it. My picks are between either Clive Owen, back in the day when he would have been young enough to do it, or Michael Fassbender.
Oh, Fassbender's an interesting choice. That's quite good.
If you do it like his character in Inglourious Bastards, that to me screams like a Bond audition. That whole bit.
I've not heard that one chucked out before. That's quite spicy. I like that. I like that take.
Go on, Jacob, hit me.
See, so for me, I personally would prefer an unknown.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good shout as well. Yeah.
But my big take really is I don't think that Idris Elba's right for the role personally for me. I think having seen him
in
racist. Yes, that obviously. It's because of having seen him in Luther. I feel like I've seen him be a hardened man of the law, and so for me, I'm like, well, I've seen it.
Fair enough.
And so for me, I don't really. To me, I wouldn't see much gained from seeing him in that role.
Yeah, fair enough.
I haven't already.
He's a bit different though. He's a bit more sort of like rough around the edges in that, isn't he? He's good at accents. That's what I'd say with Idris Elba, because I was like, I think I initially had a similar take to you, but then I was reminded like, wow, he's really good at accents, so he could probably do like a slightly posher.
Oh, I'm sure. Like I said, I'm sure he would do a great job, but I think Bond to me feels like it should go to someone unknown just to shut everyone up.
Yeah.
You're all wrong. It's no one you've ever heard of. The end.
Adam, what are you saying?
Well, I remember a few months ago, maybe a year or two ago, in fact, Richard Madden's name was kind of thrown around And I think he has a kind of, obviously his, you know, his star is rising. You know, he's going to be in Eternals shortly, despite the bad ratings that seems to be getting. You know, his profile in Hollywood is growing, so he not necessarily the unknown that you might want, but by the same token, Daniel Craig was not an unknown, but he was just kind of like, he was beginning to flourish in that way.
I think he's a really good shout. He's a good actor as well. If you've seen The Bodyguard, he's got the chops for it.
Yeah. He has he has the look, he has the acting quality, the demeanor. I think he could pull that off. Or one I've literally just thought of right now that could be spicy if he could nail the accent. He's also quite good at accents. Cillian Murphy.
Oh yeah, I could see that. You'd have to bulk up a bit because I just see him as like emaciated in my head.
Yeah, but I was just thinking of like the kind of the cold, heartless badass that he seems to play.
He's got the eyes for
Peaky Blinders and stuff. Like he has like gravitas to him, just like a screen presence that could really fit the role.
I love Cillian Murphy, so that's a good shot for me. Tommy, what are you saying?
Timothy Chalamet. No, not really. I think I'm kind of with you, Adam, in that I think Richard Madden would be really good. But one of the other person that's been floated by the bookies right now is this guy René Jean Page from Bridgerton, and I've only seen a bit of Bridgerton, but weirdly I can see it.
I only know him from that car advert.
But weirdly, it makes. I feel like they did that car advert. I feel like that's like a dry run. It's like trying to hint at him being James Bond because James Bond drives cars.
We'll try you out on this, and if you nail this,
no, you know what? That's a really good shout.
I love that. That might be. I might.
You love Bridgerton?
Yeah. No, I've never seen it. But
he said he loved that shout, not that show.
What's he been in? Have I seen him in anything?
He's pretty much just fresh on the scene, which is why I think he'd be quite good for it. Because Daniel Craig was quite... I mean, he wasn't new on the scene, but he hadn't really been in the public eye very long. Yeah,
I'd say of all the takes, that's my favourite.
Fair enough.
That's a hot one. That's spicy.
Okay, well, this has been our Daniel Craig retrospective and our review of No Time to Die.
We'll miss you, Craig.
We will. We'll miss you, Craig.
We'll miss you, Craig.
Yeah.
Fucking Craig.
It's been myself, Rupert. We got Adam. We got Jacob. We got Tommy. The whole crew has assembled. It's Avengers number 6. We're killing it. If you've made it this far, well done. You're a hero. If you liked it, press like. If you disliked it, I'm amazed you're still listening, but press dislike if you disliked it. Let us know what your ranking is and who should be the next Bond. If you are watching this and you want to drop us a comment, we have been internally screening. Peace out.